Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Multicultural Education Group Counseling. Um, to recap from last session, we talked a little bit about culture and got to know a little bit about each other and what cultures we come from, and saw the differences between our different cultures. Even though we may come from the same, there are different things within those cultures that are different from one another. In this session, we're gonna go a little bit from culture to diversity. And in this session, we're gonna go over diversity. We're going to be making 3 goals for ourselves, what we want to see come out of what we're doing. And then we're gonna go into the whole diversity discussion. So 3 goals. So I basically, for me, as your counselor, guys are throughout this whole experience to value diversity, to think critically, to learning how to learn, work on problem solving skills, cooperation with others, caring for others, working in teams, decision making, and communication. So all those skills either are going to be enhanced, or when it comes to multicultural, are going to find better ways to communicate or make decisions when you're with other cultures, working with teams from other cultures or people from the same culture but believe in different things. So all of these I want to see within our last couple of sessions. So those are my goals for you guys. If you have some goals that you want to create for yourself, um, you can create for yourself. Think of 3, whether it can be the ones that I created or some that you created yourself. Um, so yeah, I'm just gonna give you guys about 2 minutes to create those goals. And if you would like to share, then I'll open it up to you guys to share 3 of your goals. So I'll give you guys about 3 minutes. So are you guys ready? You need more time?
I'm ready.
Okay. Does someone want to share their 3 goals?
I'll share mine. Okay, mine are to learn more about other cultures in order to become a more culturally competent counselor. And not just learn, but to be more understanding of other cultures, to learn more of my implicit biases so that I'm more self aware, and to just continue to try and be open minded and never stop learning.
Those are
My,
great goals. Go ahead, Rachel.
Mine are pretty similar to Keisha. My first one was also to learn about other cultures and just different cultures in general. Um, I wrote to possibly learn something different in my own culture. I obviously don't know everything that I need to know about my own culture, so possibly I could possibly learn something new with from somebody who shares the same culture as me, and just overall expand my knowledge. So I just want to become more open minded. I want to get out of the little box that I'm currently in when it comes to cultures, and just learn from others. Okay.
So my my three is my first one I wrote down would be a goal as far as decision making because in my family whenever a decision has to be made um, the response is usually piénsalo, you know. you know but that doesn't make a decision. You know what I'm saying? It's like if I have a decision to make, they'll all tell me, think about it, but none of them will help me either left, right, red, blue, you know? So I'm just stuck not with no input. So my second goal would be to try to reflect less with my family. I do that at work a lot. Like when I have a client and they're sharing, I'll say to them, "Wow, so it sounds like you're sad, or it sounds like you're this, or it sounds like you're that," or I'll repeat what they're saying in a nice way, not to sound like a parrot, but I'll repeat what they're saying, you know. And sometimes when I do that to my wife, she gets mad, you know. So I got to stop doing that. And you know, the third thing is it's gonna sound weird, but I can explain it really quick. And my third goal is to not influence so much because like wherever I'm at and there's other cultures, right away I want to, you know, promote Puerto Rico, you know, like, you know, because I feel like Puerto Rico got a bad rap because of what's been happening lately with all the hurricanes. So I'm trying to, I sound like almost like a salesman. I'm like, yeah, you got to go to Puerto Rico and you got to see this and you got to see that and you got, so I got to tone that down a little bit.
Those are some great goals, guys. It's good that I hear that you guys want to learn more about other cultures and learn about your own. And Alex's last goal, a lot of people do that a lot. You see it a lot, especially when your culture is underrepresented, and people don't know much about it. You know, you want to rep it so much, you want to tell them all the good things, or if they have all these negative views about you, you want to share all those good ones. And sometimes when you're around other cultures, it just makes everybody like, okay, we get it, or stuff like that. But it's also, you know, that pride in you that you want to show off your culture, and being able to do that, but having a better conversation about it, bringing up a topic where it involves all the other cultures, where they have a moment where like, let's talk about our favorite places from our country, you know, creating that communication and creating those discussions with people where you get to rep your culture, but also you'll be able to have others rep their cultures at the same time, and there's no offense to anyone, like, you know, there's no competition, having that level with people. So that's those are great goals, and I hope throughout the sessions we're able to accomplish those, and I'll definitely make sure our lessons reach those goals. A lot of our discussions are going to be led by you guys, where I give us a topic to talk about for the day, and you guys may lead it based off of, you know, some of the experiences that you have. But I want you to always remember the goals that you guys have. So whenever we like focus and when we're talking more about experiences, we always remember the goals that we have for ourselves and have for each other. So that's definitely something I wanted to put out there. Now that we have our goal, um, I want to go over a little bit about what we're going to be talking about today. So the topic I have for us today is diversity. So diversity, it means the differences and includes all of us in our rich and infinite variety. So it's the differences that we have within each other, whether it's beliefs and values or the way we dress or the music that we listen to. And we come from a very diverse country. And throughout the years and throughout the generations changed. I know last time we talked about traditional and modern. That's a big thing when it comes to diversity, because the more modern we get, the more diverse we get, because we have a lot of older traditional people who stick to those traditional things, and the modern people of that culture make up new things, or they may not do all those other things. And that diverses, it changes the culture in so many ways, and it makes it more diverse. And since those creations are and those changes are being made, it's good that we educate ourselves, whether it's remembering those traditional things that created the new things that we have now, or even educating self on the changes that are happening now, so that when we're talking to other people, we understand, like, we may not be doing too much traditional, but we may not be doing too much modern when you're talking, or when it comes to other cultures that you just meet, getting to know their differences so you can have those good conversations with them, and you can educate so you can learn how to help them, whether you're here to help you become a better counselor, or it's here so that you can just talk to a friend that comes from a different culture from you, and you want to develop those conversations. Learning about their cultures in many different ways and learning how diverse we all are is something that can develop those good conversations. So what we're gonna do is, I have this little exercise for us. I am going to read you a poem, and it's specifically about diversity, and we're just gonna break this poem down and compare it to the world that we live in, even the country that we live in, if we want to small it down, because even our country is very, very diverse. So the poem is If All the Trees Were Oaks. So I'm going to read it out loud, but I'm also going to share it with you guys on my screen. So, those who are more visual learners can be able to see what I'm sharing and be able to read it yourself.
Sorry, guys, my phone is about to cut off. So when I get in the house, I'm going to log back in.
No problem.
Okay.
So, that's not it. Okay, I'm going to make it bigger. Give me 1 second. So this is our poem. It's called If All the Trees Were Oaks. I'm gonna read it out loud, and then you guys can read it to yourself. I'll give you 3 minutes so you can really understand the poem. But if all the trees were oaks, how plain the road would seem. No maple syrup, banana splits, and how would orange juice be? Wouldn't it be boring, a boring place, if all the people were the same? Just one color, just one language, just one family name. But if the forest were the world and all the people were the trees, palm and pine and bamboo and willow live and grow in harmony. Aren't you glad, my good friend? Different though we be, we are here to help each other. I learn from you and you learn from me. I
Very
see
nice.
reactions. I see. I hit you guys a little bit. I hit the heart a little bit, Lisa. So,
The
you
hormones
guys
are
can
really
read
kicking
it
in.
over again. To,
Ever. I was like, okay, hold on, no maple syrup or banana splits? No, I'm good. I do not want to live in a world like that. I'm
you guys, I'll give you about a minute or so to read it over and really get it into it, because I'm going to be asking questions to start a discussion about diversity based off this poem. So, you can read it over, just get to know it a little bit more. I'll give you a minute or so.
I already know what I'm gonna say.
Okay. So my first question for you guys, as you can see the questions on the side, but how is the forest like the world? How can you compare the forest? So it says if the forest were the world, how would you compare that?
Um, I think they're mostly referring to kind of like in the forest, you don't only just have trees, you have grass, you have animals, you have plants and all that stuff. Um, and it's just like, let's say we're comparing it to the country, for example, it's what is it called? The big boiling pot, not the boiling pot. Y'all know what I'm talking about, right?
The melting pot.
Huh? Melting pot, yes. Boiling pot. So it's like you need all these different things to come together to make the forest. It wouldn't be a forest if you didn't have all those different aspects of it. It would just, I don't even know what it would, trees, I guess, but it wouldn't be a forest if it didn't have all the different aspects. And the world wouldn't be the world if we didn't have all these different people. Just imagine if everybody in the world was Puerto Rican. You know what I mean? It's like,
I know me personally, I can't even imagine it. Like if you think about like from my experience being around my family, sometimes you're like, I need a break. And one of my best friends, you know, she comes from a different culture from me. So when I go to her house, I'm like, wow, this is so different. Like, you know, and it's exciting.
Mhm.
Like you try something new and you're like, oh my God, like that's good. That's fun, you know? And so imagine a world where everybody was almost like your family.
it's
And
like
you meet
traveling.
all day. It's crazy.
It's a very nice poem, Stephanie. Very nice.
I was
Thank
like
I what,
traveling. Like my grandmother literally only travels to DR, and I'm just like, Mom, there's so cool. She goes to DR like twice or three times a year, and I'm like, sis, you can go anywhere, like, and you're going to DR. Like you grew up there, you were raised there. What else do you want? Like, I get you want to see, but it's like you don't get tired of seeing the same
Mhm.
thing all the time, you know. But you know, I can't do that. I have to travel like different places.
Alex, how you feel about that?
that's it's a beautiful poem. It reminds me when I was young. I had shared before that my mother married an Argentinian. So when I was 9, he took us to Argentina, and so we were supposed to stay there for the summer for like just short of 2 months. We wound up staying there uh, for almost 9 months. um, when I came back from Argentina, I was talking different. I was doing different things. Like when I would go to eat, right? Instead of just running to eat, I would run to the bathroom first, wash my face, wash my hands. Back then I had hair. I would comb my hair, and I would sit at the table really quiet, and I wouldn't talk, you know. So my brother and my sisters would look at me like I was weird, you know. But I picked up, a little bit of that culture, just a slight bit. My love for soccer also, uh, you know, um, I because when I was over there, I went to a few games, and I caught the fever. It's very exciting. So the part where it says, I like the part that it says, we live and grow in harmony. Because um, I always thought for a long time in the strife, the conflict, you know. But now that I'm a little older, I see how much harmony there's really actually there. You know, um, there's a lot of harmony. I would say there's more harmony than discord in this grand melting pot in New York, because you might hear of a couple of instances or examples of what they call a hate crime, but mostly there's more harmony than not, you know. So that's what it meant to me. And it brought back a really nice memory of my childhood.
That is great to hear. And I can agree with the live and grow in harmony because, when I read that part of the poem, it reminds me of like when you're in like a rainforest and you see all these different trees, right? And then it rains, right? And everybody thinks it's a bad thing because some people just don't like the rain. They're like, oh my God, it's rain. But then when you realize the rain is what makes these trees and this grass and gives the water to the animals and it makes it grow. So when you think about our world and you think about our country, it's like we go through these hardships, but we grow from them. We are these different trees and the rain is all this, negativity that we have just coming down. And when the storm is clear, it helps us grow. We learn from it and we grow and we get bigger and bigger to people can't see over us, you know? And that's something that I got from this poem. And when it comes to diversity, that bringing together, we see it a lot in this upcoming year, with all the negativity that we got, these different cultures coming together and, fighting for what's right and growing from the bad and creating more good. And you
Right.
see that. And so comparing the forest to the world is something that I see, comparing it. And going specifically into the trees, palm, pine, bamboo, willow, it reminds me of like different parts of the world. Like when I think of like palm, I think of like Jamaica, the nice beach, and I'm just sitting there enjoying myself. It makes me sad because I was there last year and I wanted to go again, but we're not gonna be sad today. And then when you think of pine, you think of like a lot of, you know, other countries. I specifically haven't really seen a country with mostly pine, if you guys have any experiences with that. But bamboo, you see that a lot of in South America too with the bamboo, or in Africa they use it to like build their homes and build the things to help them survive. And so when you think of these different type of trees and you compare them to different type of people, you know, what are like some differences that you see? Like, if you can really think of something, it could be anything.
I even think about like just stuff that we celebrate. As when you say pine, I think about Christmas. And not everybody celebrates Christmas. People celebrate Hanukkah and Kwanzaa and all that stuff. So it's like I mean, I've seen like the candles and stuff, we used to have to color them in elementary, middle school, and all that stuff. But I don't really know exactly what it is that they do. Why exactly are there 12 candles and all that stuff? And, just in general with pine, I think about just different holidays that people celebrate. Bamboo, I automatically think of like pandas. um, Palm trees, I love palm trees. I don't know, for some reason I can't get myself to travel to cold places, only warm. So just in general, like the stuff that we think when we look at a word in general, like that in itself is differences in people, because obviously other people are gonna think of different stuff, you know what I mean? So yeah, just in that in itself, just like the experiences that you have with a certain um picture or a certain word in itself is something that could be different in people, the way people think, what comes to mind when people see something. And one of you guys might be like, oh wow, I didn't think of that. You know what I mean? And it's like, just that's the beauty of it. It's like, oh wow, okay, cool. I didn't think of that. Thank you for bringing that up to my mind now.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's cool. I like Lisa's response. So when I read that line, right, the trees, the first thing that comes to my mind is the palm and the pine. The palm tree, maybe is because of my upbringing in church, but I always thought that a palm tree, it looks weak because it's flexible, but when the storm comes, when in the hurricanes, they don't break. They'll bend all the way down, horizontal, but they won't break. You know, whereas the pine tree is very rigid, very strong. You know, but even the pine tree can teach something, because even in the most harsh of winter, the pine doesn't lose its foliage. The needles, those are the leaves, the needles. It doesn't lose even in the cold. It stays true to what it is, a tree. You know, and the bamboo, even though the bamboo is very rigid, and it doesn't have that much leaves, the leaves that it has is packed with nutrient. The panda lives off of the bamboo. So it's rigid. It doesn't have that much leaves, but it's packed with nourishment for the animals. The willow tree, my wife's favorite, not my favorite, my wife's favorite. It looks funny. It looks like it's falling, but that's the one that casts the biggest shadow. So that's the one that gives the most shade, because it's falling. The branches are curved down. you know so each of them, even though it looks one thing, it and to me it reminds me of different personalities. Like the palm tree, the person that looks like they may be weak, that person may actually go through a very difficult moment in their lives, and just like the palm tree will bend with the wind and not break. you know so
You mentioned
yeah,
with
personalities.
yeah, like how you mentioned the differences in character and like in characteristics of these trees. Because I for a second, I don't know why I was thinking willow was like the little flower that you blow and like you make a wish or something. But then now that you say willow, I remember I would see those in DR and I would be like, oh my god, those trees look sad, like they're just like
Yeah.
and I thought about like a pine tree where it's like
Yeah.
it's super, so I like that. You see, and I didn't know about the pine, the little needles in the pine staying there. So you see, you just told me something.
And I like how you compare them to different personalities. You can compare it to even different cultures, different people, that you see throughout your life, because it's like the things that you see on the outside can be appearance, or it can be what you hear from other people about that culture or about that person. But then when you really get to know it, when you really mess around with it, a tree, when you really mess around with it, you see all the good things that come out of it. You see all the things that it can help, or all the great qualities that it has, and that's with culture. You see the good parts of a culture, even though there may be some bad. You see, with a person, you see the good things in a person, even though you may have seen a little bit of bad. So it's all about, like, appearance, or what people say is not always what it is, unless you sit down with that actual person and you really get to know them, and that's comparing trees to people. And you might have a good time, you might enjoy yourself, and that goes into the whole idea of it just being one tree, you know like that one tree. I think the only difference would it be would one is greener than the other, or one, in the fall time, one loses more leaves than the other. And it's just like, well, that's not much of a difference, and it's just seeing that same thing over when you have a conversation with somebody, and it's just like the same thing over and over. You start to look, and it's just like, well, is there anything else we can, like, talk about? Like, what happened? What if, we all did the same thing, or we all said the same traditions? I'm pretty sure, even though we come from the same cultures, that we do something different for Christmas, or we eat something different for Christmas, or we celebrate a different way when it comes to Christmas or the different holidays. And that difference can be a really big impact on other people, like, and that's something you learn throughout. So that's what diversity really is like, these trees, they're so diverse and they're so different that it creates this world that's actually really beautiful, even though it had its hard moments, you know? And diversity is not just what you see, but is what you know, what you hear, you know, what you experience with those trees. And that's diversity. What you experience when you experience a tree falling down, or when you cut a tree down and you're playing with it, or you decorating your tree and you notice the different textures. If you know, if you get a real tree, I still have a fake one, but if you get a real tree and you know, yeah, or you go to a different country and you see a different type of tree and you really like trying to figure out like what makes it so different, you start to see the different things. You know, it might look bad, it might look dull because it drops, you know, but when you actually look at it, it's like, wow, it's like, it's, you know, different from what I've seen. And that's diversity. Really getting to know, really getting to sit down and see the differences that are good, that are bad, that are different, you know, that are you're willing to explore. So that's kind of what I wanted to
Yeah.
take out of this.
Yeah, like
Go ahead.
there's one of my coworkers. He's from Uruguay. Uruguay is a small country in South America, and I remember he came to work over at the hospital about 4 years ago, and I remember his birthday is in November, right? So right around Thanksgiving, I had asked him if he was gonna participate in Thanksgiving, and he said, well, my birthday's on that day. So I said, oh, wow, so you got double celebrations. Sure enough, next week, the week of Thanksgiving, when, he came in with two big bags. And I found that odd. I had a bottle of wine from him, you know. So I said, hey, Miguel, I remembered it was your birthday and I brought you a bottle of wine. I know you love wine. And he said, wow, that's thoughtful, but why would you give me a gift? And it surprised me. I was like, it's your birthday. And he's like, no, I have gifts for everybody. I was like, what? And in Uruguay, when the birthday person is the one that gives the gifts.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So he was like, he had a little something for everybody. It was just a little something, but he had a little something. He had two big bags, and he had a little something for everybody that worked at the clinic. And it was like really refreshing to see something different, to experience something different. It felt a little weird too.
I would be like, all right, well, hey, y'all getting something on my birthday, not on Christmas, not on my birthday.
It's really, yeah, it's really different to see something like that. Like people would be surprised, but it was refreshing. It was like a good experience to experience. And it's not saying that, when you experience those things, like you're gonna do it, but you probably save it as a good memory, or you probably will do it. It probably will become a tradition that you do, especially when you are in relationships with different cultures, or when you make friends with different cultures. You start to like things and you start to do it yourself. And so that's what diversity is, seeing those differences and actually noticing how to make them connect and how to appreciate them, and notice the others without being judgmental about it, you know so I'm glad we had the discussion. So to close us out today, I just want to tell you guys that you guys did great. And just with one word, tell me how you felt about either the poem or learning a little bit diversity, or how we took this discussion about diversity, like in just one word. Give me one word.
Knowledgeable.
That's a good one.
I would say refreshed.
I like that one too. Me, I would say accomplished. I feel like we did accomplish something today with the use of this poem and learning a little bit in a different way, not too much lecture, but learning off of each other. So I'm glad you guys came to my session. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. We had our laughs and we learned a little bit about each other. Next session, we're going to go into a little bit more specific with actual cultures. We're going to try some new activities and maybe lead the discussion through experiences. So thank you guys for coming. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
No problem. Okay, I ended my recording. Let me.
Cool.
Esto se